I'm excited to be headed to San Diego on November 4th and 5th this year for the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. This event always brings together the best in talent acquisition, recruiting leaders, HR executives, HR tech, people that are really shaping where this industry is going. It's more than just a pitch fest. I mean, this is where actual learning comes in. They've been around for 30 years. It's a great event at San Diego in November. And you're going to have some excellent speakers, demonstrations. We have pin.com there. Joel Loudry will be there. You'll have the team from ERE there, Jim Stroud. These are people that have been shaping the industry this decade and really where it's going in terms of AI and the blend with AI and recruiters and all that good stuff. I went in April this year and it was a transformative experience. We had a great time with Digital Recruiter booth and speaking and just people learning about automation and content and AI tools. It was just really cool event. So I'll be an official content partner representing Digital Recruiter. So we're going to be capturing videos, doing man on the street, interviewing the speakers, the sponsors, really getting a pulse on the action. So if you're in talent acquisition, if you're agency recruiter, this is the place to be on November 4th and 5th. Go meet your peers in person, learn from them. There's virtual tickets, there's in-person events. It's an awesome time. And so please enjoy our ERE podcast series so it gets you a glimpse of all the people that are going to be at ERE, and we'd love to see you there. All right, welcome back to another episode of our special ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit podcast series. As always, I'm your host, Clark Wilcox, founder at Digital Recruiter, and I am joined by a very special guest, Anita Chandrasekhar, the Global Head of Talent Strategy and Operations at Zapier. How did I do on the pronunciation, first and foremost?
You did great in the pronunciation, but it also is Zapier.
Like Zapier. The easiest one. I screwed up. Of course. I appreciate.
You got my name spot on.
Well, you know what? That's all I care about. I can figure out the rest after. I appreciate you being here. I love your topic, navigating fraud and AI misuse in hiring, because this thing got just thrown on the scene at us the last couple of years. It's obviously the hot button topic, especially in recruiting in TA world, and I know you speak on Wednesday. If you don't know, Wednesday, November, but for your listening, Wednesday, November 5th at 11 a.m. PST. That's when you're speaking. So I got to ask, first of all, why this topic?
Yeah. Great question. It just really came from, I think, a mix of the lived experiences of what we were seeing across the industry.
Yeah.
In our own process, we started to spot red flags from resumes, gaps, things like that, but also LinkedIn profiles that were looking fake, or interviews that felt like they were reading from something, very scripted. And at the same time, this was when all of those stories about fraud rings and state-sponsored actors and things like that were coming up. And it was clear that this isn't anymore just about a bad hire. It was a real business risk. And as a remote company, especially, I think we're at an even higher risk of it. Yeah. And so we just knew we had to act. And so it became a top priority, and we've been working on it since.
I'm fairly removed from the impact of a lot of that stuff, or from even some of the activities, just based on kind of where I'm at, kind of my day-to-day working. Agency recruiters, a lot more focused on kind of business development, kind of top of funnel sourcing, less helping them, through the interview process. But but I hear about this and I read about this all the time. When did you first start to kind of notice this? Start to really become more rampant?
I would say it's this year,
Okay.
More around early to mid this year is when it started to really ramp up. It was probably there. We probably didn't see it as much.
Yeah.
But also we have a really rigorous hiring process. So we have so many rounds that I don't know if you can really make it through all of those rounds, even when we weren't really paying as much attention. But the minute we started to see the cases show up, examples come up, I think we see the stuff ranges from inflated resumes, which is one end. It's less of a risk, I think, at that point, but more just making sure we're getting the right people in the seat, or just interview cheating. But the more serious cases are candidates logging in from the wrong geography, countries that we don't hire in from, but saying that they're in a different place, or trying deepfakes. We've started to see a lot of deepfakes show up in our interviews, which is wild. And also we've seen some cases where people swap between interviews. So we have a recruiter interview, it's one person, and then it's a whole different person who shows up in the hiring manager. screen. But because we record our interviews and we're able to go see it, the good news is with the better tools and the layered checks, I think our recruiters have been able to usually catch it before it gets too far.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. I want to hear from boots on the ground that's living it day to day. Like, what's kind of like a safeguard or two that's simple that you recommend for recruiting teams or anyone that's like kind of like a simple thing either to kind of recognize the flags or kind of institute some systems or some guardrails around that they could even do like today or this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, I would say, so early on, like top of funnel, I think what we've done is we run an IP check, which is a little plug for Zapier. We have a workflow which does an IP check that flags anything unusual, right? Our ATS, it pulls in where the person applied from, and then where they are, where their application says they're from, and or where the application was submitted from. So we're able to check that. Now, that in itself starts to signal. Now, of course, sometimes people are traveling. They could be doing it from a different location. It's not the be all end all, but it's one flag. Similarly, I would say work with your ATS to see if they have any specific ATS built in. Our ATS is Ashby, and they have a fraud detection built in, which is great. We actually worked with them as a design partner to shape it. So it's really working for us. And so that was a great one. The other one is we use BrightHire for all our interviews. It's an AI note taker. And so it records our interviews. And so we're able to, so a couple of the times that we've found it has been when we go back and review the interview and we say, wait, I don't think this was the person in the second interview. So it's those are the kinds of I think there are tools there that can do this for you. I would also say that now we're speaking to folks about finding deepfake detection. They have tools again that like platforms and companies that do this for you, but really needing to vet who you use because anyone and everyone is coming up with AI tools these days. So really vetting it to make sure that it is actually doing for you what it is. But the first thing I would say is to actually look back at the last few months and see where the biggest risk is, at least in your case. For us, because it's a remote company, we might have risks in certain other places as one would have if they were doing something more in person. So really getting to where the fraud could creep up is dependent on your context.
Absolutely. Well, you said something interesting that I want to just get your thoughts on, and I think is really interesting, is vetting the partners that you work with. Now, obviously, you work with a known brand that's established in the market, but how do you go about vetting other tech partners and softwares that you could potentially work with?
Oh, yes. Oh, I love this. I can talk about it for a very long time, but the TLDR on it, I think, is more always look at multiple people doing the same thing and speak to them. Do demos with every single company. So let's say you pick 4 or 5 that do the same thing. Do demos with each of them. Ask the questions you want to ask. You always want to get a sense of, is this an organization or a company that is just putting out a tool because they see a gap? Or do they have actual, in our case, recruitment folks who are helping feed into what this is, right? You want to make sure that folks who've actually done this are the ones at least helping build the process, if not running the main build, to make sure that we get something that is more recruitment focused. So I would say get that, do the demos. And then once we do the demos, very easily you can knock out a couple because it just doesn't work for you. And then when you're down to your last like 1 or 2, like 2 or 3 finalists, then we always ask for people that they've worked with. We say, can we connect with a client that you already have implemented this with, and we would love to get their feedback on what it is. And strong folks who really want your business will give you those contacts. Sometimes I also do understand that they want to protect the time of their clients and they don't, but more often than not they do. And I've done that for people. Like when Ashby initially came with us, they asked if we could be that person that speaks to them about how the rollout and the implementation was, and we've done it. So startups and companies know that this is how they get their tool off the ground. So you get that firsthand take from the people that they work with, so that you know that what you're implementing and the challenges that you might see are going to be there, and you hear from them firsthand.
Yeah, I think it's a couple that I really like about that. I mean, the whole answer is great, but the pick your questions that you have to ask. I tell people, recruiters, when they're picking an ATS software, they'll sell you every feature in the book, but
Yeah.
what are the 3 things you have to have it do,
Yeah.
and make them show you how it's going to do those things.
Yep.
Right, because if that's the whole point of all this, you don't necessarily need everything to get the ROI or the value from the tool, or incorporate into recruiters workflow or reporting or whatever that looks like. Right, show that piece of it. And I do agree with the references. I think there is a fine line there,
Yeah.
between respecting time. I had someone reach out to people before I even talked to my team. Reach out to like 3 or 4 or 5 people, and then
Hmm.
cancel the call with our team. I was like, that's rude. And it's like, that's not someone I want to work with. Anyway, to
Yeah.
be perfectly honest, I mean, they all gave glowing recommendations. That's like, the interest. So I think there's a treat
Yeah.
people with the respect you're going to want to be treated with, especially when you're going to be in that type of partnership,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's do that, but be considerate too at the same time, which I
Absolutely.
mean, you mentioned. And I think that is on both sides. If you're the vendor, right, or the client, or the customer, excuse me,
Yeah.
I think that's important. And if you're at that stage in the process, I think there is like a treat people with just kind of that healthy respect and all that,
Yeah.
that they've given you that time, and it's not just like, well, we're going to pay you money, so like do everything we want for us. I think those really healthy partnerships, especially when you're tackling a problem like this, is
Yeah.
so important, because you want that vendor to look out for you, even if you might not even know what's going on.
Yes, for sure. And
Yeah.
I think that the other pitfall that sometimes people fall into is you only want to go with a very well established
Mm-hmm.
company. I think that definitely has its pros.
Yeah.
In certain cases, I would say absolutely. You know that this is tried and tested.
Yeah.
Go with it because you know you'll get the results. It's been working. But I also think sometimes it really helps going with very like growing small companies because they really want to work with you
Yeah.
because you're what you need is what they will make happen for you. And
Yep.
I think there is some benefit in that too. So depending on what it is that you're trying to add on or stack on to your existing tech stack, I think it's always helpful to think about in which case do you want something to be really catered to your company or your team's needs versus what are the times that you want something that is tried and tested and you need this and that's where you want to go from.
It's really smart. I think it's really well said, because I've seen it, and so I give people like 3 or 5 ATSs to go check out and talk to, but I'm like, there's 1 or 2 here that will provide unmatched customer support. They might not
Yeah.
have all the technical abilities of like the big ATS that you know of, but they're going to work with you. And I work with a lot of smaller agencies. Like, they're going to be responsive and like customized to you and fix your issues.
Yeah.
And that I recommend that, because I know they're going to make me look good, because
Yeah.
customer service is, at the end of the day, with tech, is the key for most people. I mean, you have the people that can run with things, but it's just far and few between,
Oh yes,
and most
absolutely.
people need the hand holding, and you can, I think
Oh yeah,
that's the
CSM
opportunity.
keeps or breaks it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, just being able to like dive in and just like solve the problems as they come up in the moment. I mean, that's I feel like that's
Yep.
like that's just the winning approach I see with companies, because it's easy to spam and to spray and
Yeah.
pray and have triggers and everything else, but the people that are coming through when problems inevitably come up, like
Yeah.
those are the people that are here to stay.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
so we'll pivot a little bit. Have you
Mhm.
been at ERE in person before?
No, I've done the virtual one.
Okay.
I've not been in person before.
Okay. Awesome. What are you excited about going in person your first time? Like, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to just be at a conference in person. I know that
Yeah.
it's been a while since COVID, but
Yeah.
come on, we all like the in person interaction. So that's exciting. I think I'm really excited to be part of this year's conference. Mainly because of the lineup of speakers. It's just the range of topics being discussed is so cool and so new and out there. I'm excited. I think there's so much that's happening across TA in general right now, whether it's AI and automation or new sourcing strategies, hiring models. I'm really looking forward to just learning from heads of talent across industries too, who are navigating these changes in real time. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to contribute to that conversation by sharing what we're seeing specifically around candidate fraud, which is, I think, as I said, a challenge that's growing fast.
Yeah, it's a cool evolution from going to the one in April that was a lot of I would say introduction, but it kind of was to a lot of what's possible with AI. But
Mhm.
it's interesting, 6, 7 months later, we're starting to see and Connor Klein at pin.com talked about this with me. He's like, there's like
Yeah.
the refinement era with AI is coming a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's like, and that's what I'm seeing in like kind of the double edged sword of it. And so there's a lot, the conversation, like the talk that you're going to give. And I like that that's a topic that's going to be kind of covered. There's like the
Yeah.
legality piece of it. There's the fraud part of it, right? The
Mhm.
compliance and
Mhm.
might not always be things that's like, oh, I can't wait to learn about that. But if you do know that and you educate yourself on that side of things, you become really invaluable to your companies. And as
Mhm.
HRTA folks are looking at ways to be indispensable and not be part of layoffs and everything else, like I think this is an opportunity, a type of event where you could really learn, bring that wealth of knowledge back to your company and really become even more of an asset
Yeah.
in for
Looking
your
forward to
team just by
that. Mhm.
knowing, having the connections like yourself and knowing people and having places to go to, right? Like that's the value that leaders at these companies really are looking for, right? Who's going to help lead us the way to
Yeah.
embrace this and to do this the right way, right? Benefit from it, but also, avoid a lot of the risk,
Yeah,
or
exactly. I
mitigate the
think
risk.
that's the
Yeah.
key. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I think it's about hearing how TA leaders are thinking about balancing that innovation with risk,
Yeah.
especially in a world where AI is just transforming both sides of the hiring table, right?
Yeah.
It's not that the AI is only in our hands.
Yeah.
The candidates have it too. And so but at the same time, there's just so much potential for AI to make hiring faster, smarter, fairer, all of those things. But we just need to be also aware of the ways it can be misused and just learning to see how others are navigating that tension. I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, it'll be super fun, and
Yeah.
I guess the one last thing is you've been sourcing, been recruiting in the world for, I mean, before AI, everything, for about 17 plus years. What's something that you've seen kind of stay the same and be different, right? And in your evolution in TA and recruiting.
What is something that has stayed the same,
Yeah,
and what is
like a
something that's
tried and true principle, and then maybe like the biggest shift that you've seen. Yeah,
yeah. I think the tried and true principle is the candidate experience. I don't think that that's
yeah,
going to change. I think candidate experience is very much there. You need the people touch for that, which is why sometimes when people talk about AI replacing, and I mean that one-on-one personal touch is always going to be needed. We need the recruiters, we need the hiring managers. People want to talk to people,
yeah.
and so that is always going to be there. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind about that. And so the candidate experience is one that's always going to matter,
Hmm.
and is going to lead where which companies get the best people. I
Absolutely.
think that's always there. On the side of like what's changing, I mean, what's not changing?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that's changing. I do think there's probably some significantly better ways for us to source. I think there's a lot in sourcing that is changing constantly. I think we used to be a lot more localized. Companies have become more global. There's more remote global. We've always been a remote global company, but I think there's a lot that's changing there in terms of how we hire as we get more global, and as automation and AI grow so much more. I think that's a space that's constantly evolving,
I,
along with quite a few others.
I agree. And as someone kind of in the coaching, consulting space, training space, it's interesting to learn and navigate. Just one thing that comes to mind is just training and how I onboard people, how I train
Mm.
people from being in the quote
Yeah.
unquote pit of Aerotech, a staffing company, when I was learning just by being there day to day, and
Yeah.
how you kind of immerse and learn virtually and onboard people virtually and kind of looking for a different skill set. And I've noticed myself, I'm gravitating towards people that are just natural learners and can
Mm.
study something for 6 7 hours a day, that I don't have to micromanage, and I know that they've put in the work and they can kind of feed it back because I have to trust that piece of it.
Yeah.
Versus like I may be, with someone kind of stuck next to me in office. It's like they kind of have to do that a little bit, but like I can also have them, they're more like shadow and need to be hands on and in person. So it's kind of shifted sometimes for certain roles, like the intangibles and the traits that I'm looking for versus like virtual and in person and all that. So it's kind of, as you were saying that, it just made me think of that because it's just, there is things like that. And I think I've worked with owners and teams that there's definitely differences in how you onboard people virtually. And I know
Yeah.
the people are like, oh, everyone has to be in person. It's like not necessarily true. I think that the beauty is in the nuance of it and just thinking
Yeah.
strategically and intentionally about your organization and people's schedules and where they're doing the work.
Absolutely. And talent is spread out everywhere. So
Yeah.
I think being more open to that just gives you the opportunity to tap into talent anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, Anita, I appreciate you being here. Again, the talk is Navigating Fraud, AI Misuse, and Hiring, Wednesday, November 5th at 11 a.m. PST, 2 p.m. EST. Check us out virtually. Get in person. It's San Diego in November, so get in person if you can. It's going to be a great talk. And any last words of wisdom?
Look forward to people being there, and I'll say I hope people walk away from this realizing candidate fraud isn't just a recruiting problem. It's a business risk, so got to take it seriously.
I can't wait to learn more because it's just a crazy topic. I can't believe we're talking about here even just 2-3 years after the introduction of all this. So, but thank you for being here. Appreciate it, and looking forward to meeting you in San Diego.
It's lovely talking with you, Clark.
Thanks, Nita. All right, till next time. Subscribe, like, download, all that good stuff. Make sure to check out the Innovation Summit. There's a discount code in the episode summary, so use that to get 10% off your ticket. Until next time, happy hunting, y'all.